You're feeling like you have no sex drive, you're just feeling really tired, maybe your hair is falling out, a lot of physical symptoms such as like dry skin, and you feel like your nails are brittle, then you want to look at your hormones and what is actually happening. All right, let's talk about mood and how your mood can accelerate your healing. Now, I'm not talking about being positive all the time, that everything's great and we have this perfect life and perfect everything in our life and always just looking out for the best. If we're not realistic and we're not looking at the negatives, the pros and the cons, and really getting a proper assessment, then that can set us up to be delusional almost. So if we have these expectations that we have to be happy all the time and everything needs to be great, then that's actually just setting us up for failure. And I can see how if we have these fantasies, it almost leads you to feel even more depressed because it's very hard to live those expectations of things being great all the time. So when I'm talking about mood, that's not about how to be happy all the time. It's really to set the framework of why we may be feeling more anxious or depressed and how we can support our bodies. But if you're listening to this and you feel that most of your life, your feelings are depressed, anxious, feeling down, and feeling just things are not where you want to be mood-wise, then that's where this video will help you, because I want to kind of break down all the reasons why you could be feeling more sad and less motivated and less desire to get the outcomes that you want, especially when it comes to anything in your life. So you don't feel like playing with your children, or you don't have the focus or drive you want for your work, and really just lacking that get up and go. So I like to break that down in a few things. The first one is if you're lacking vitamins and minerals. So if we're not feeding our body the right minerals that we need, it's hard to produce serotonin, dopamine, the neurotransmitters that we need for feeling good and feeling that excitement we have for life. And it's interesting because if you're feeling down, you're often going to reach for foods or chemicals that gives you that elevated high temporarily. So you may reach for more sugar, which is like a drug to your brain. You want more caffeine, or maybe even you reach for drugs and alcohol, the things that give you that you feel more balanced. Interesting, if you are feeling depressed or anxious, the last thing I'm guessing that you feel like is a big bowl of broccoli and salad. So your motivation when you're feeling low is you don't have the energy to go make something healthy, or you don't have the energy or the will to go to the gym. So it does take a lot more effort when your mood and your ambition is not there. The other thing that can make you feel more depressed, just negative, irritable, is if your hormones are off. So I know we already talked about this in the last video, but if you're feeling like you have no sex drive, you're just feeling really tired, maybe your hair is falling out, a lot of physical symptoms such as like dry skin, and you feel like your nails are brittle, then you want to look at your hormones and what is actually happening. So if you're low in estrogen, for example, you just feel overly emotional. Things can make you cry for no reason. Well, you might have a reason, but it just seems a lot more exaggerated. If you're low in testosterone, females can be low in testosterone too. You have low sex drive. It's hard to focus and concentrate. Or even if your adrenals are off, which is a big part of your hormonal system, everything becomes more effort. So hormones, a big part of the mood interaction. We want to make sure that you're supporting your hormones properly, so then you do have the that you need to feel healthier and happier. And brain neurotransmitters are the last one. So I say brain neurotransmitters, but I really mean gut neurotransmitters, because you actually produce more serotonin and dopamine in the gut and in your colon and small intestine than you do in the brain. So there's an assessment that I like to do, which is part of the Dutch testing, that can tell us how much dopamine you have, serotonin, and adrenaline output in the body. So if you don't have a lot, if you're not producing a lot on your own, then we need to fuel your body differently, and we need to give it the right nutrients so your gut has the ability to produce it. So just know you're not lacking an SSRI, you're not lacking antidepressant medication. What you are lacking is your body's ability to make these neurotransmitters. And there's so many strategic ways that you can do this. For example, learning how to do a 24-hour fast. Just by doing a 24-hour fast, you can actually reset the gut microbiome and support how your body's able to produce serotonin. The other thing is if we have, you can do stool testing and you can see if you have an overgrowth of candida, for example, it's very hard to produce serotonin as well. One way to know that you have a candida overgrowth or a yeast overgrowth is if you look at your tongue and there's a white coat there, also known as thrush. Or if you crave sugars all the time, or you feel tired and bloated all the time, you want to look into if there's a candida overgrowth, because that will greatly compromise how your body produces serotonin. So if you're not sure if it's a neurotransmitter thing, a candida thing, or a hormonal thing that's making you feel just depressed and low and lethargic, then we really do want to look at starting at foods. So there's a couple main foods that you can do, that you can eat that help with boosting dopamine levels. And a lot of them have to do with the foods that are high in omega-3s. So looking at fish, nuts, seeds, incorporating more avocado, and even looking at the dark chocolate. So that's like the 90 to 100% pure cacao. That has a really empowering way to boost your serotonin and dopamine levels. And we can do a lot of this through food, but there's also things that you can do strategically. So there's a couple precursors that we can do to help your body manufacture this serotonin, so you're not reaching for a chemical that's really just putting a Band-Aid over it. So let's not underestimate the role that our mood has on our accelerated health process. Because if we're constantly thinking negatively and, oh, we're never going to feel better, or I was doomed with this diagnosis and everyone's just out to get me, and we have this victim mentality, then that sends messengers to our system. And it's scientifically proven that the way that we think affects our long-term health goals. So if we have more of a gratitude attitude, then we know that that sends positive chemical messengers throughout our system, helps boost our immune system, helps with energy, helps on all levels of healing. And I see it in practice all the time, where someone who's gone through vigorous healing modalities, such as like going through chemo, radiation, really intense drug regimens, and they feel depressed after. You feel so depleted and run down that it's easy to become more negative and feel this is a very frustrating process, and I don't know if I can get through this. What's the point? Just kind of like lacking that zest. But when we start supplying the body with those dopamine foods, we start healing through our nervous system and giving you the nutrients and neurotransmitters that you need, that just escalates how well you're going to feel later on. And like I said, it's okay to have your up and down days. That's not what we're talking about here, but it really is the overall outlook on life and your motivation and how well mentally that you feel, because that plays a huge role in accelerating your health. So if you have a gratitude journal and you're doing meditation, you're doing all the things that you know are really empowering you and helping you have a positive and healthy outlook on life, and you still feel that you're lacking that get up and go and just feeling more down, that's where you need to look into what your sex hormones are like, what your vitamin B, B6, B12, what your magnesium status is like, get all the micro and macronutrients tested, and we can see what's off. Also, you want to know, what is your dopamine and serotonin levels? What are they like? If any of them are off balance, everything becomes more of an effort and more stressful. So I highly recommend getting tested, understanding where your level's at, because it makes the whole healing process a lot easier.